Hey guys, Welsknight here, and welcome back to another episode of Magic the Gathering Arena. Hope you guys are having an awesome day. I'm having a fantastic day. Today we're taking a look at a mono-green counters deck built around Hardened Scales, one of the new cards from the Jumpstart Historic Horizons edition. It is a 1-mana enchantment that basically says if one or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a creature you control, you get that many +1. So if you would get 1 counter, instead you get 2. You would normally get 3 counters, you would instead get 4. And then we have a ton of cards in the deck that can take advantage of that. So at 1 mana, we've got Pelt Collector, a 1-mana creature, 1/1. Whenever something stronger than Pelt Collector dies or enters the battlefield on your side, you put that many you put a +1/+1 counter on him, and as long as he has 3 or more counters, he has trample. We have 4 copies of Snakeskin Veil. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature we control and give it hexproof until end of turn. Helps us protect some of our various creatures. We've got 4 copies of Vastwood Fortification / Vastwood Thicket. This is an instant for 1 mana that can put a counter on a creature, or I can play it as a land and it will enter tapped. I've got 4 copies of Wildwood Scourge, a Hydra that is X plus a green, and it enters with that many counters on it, but whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on a non-Hydra creature I control, we put a counter on Wildwood Scourge as well. And we have a ton of, Wildwood Scourge is the only Hydra in the deck. So if counters go on any of the other creatures, Wildwood Scourge can get out of hand very, very quickly. It can get very big, very fast. Then at 2 mana, we've got 4 copies of Duskshell Crawler. It is an 0/3 that when it enters the battlefield, you put a counter on one of your creatures, and more importantly, every creature we control with a +1/+1 counter on it has trample. So this is basically the way that we end games. It helps us, you can make really, really big creatures with this deck very quickly, but if your opponent has a ton of just small, cheap creatures that can block, this prevents them from doing that, because it basically will give all of our creatures trample. Then we've got 4 copies of Incubation Druid. It is a 2-mana 0/2 that you can tap to add 1 mana. However, if it has a +1/+1 counter on it, instead of tapping for 1 mana, it can tap for 3 mana. And we have lots of ways to put +1/+1 counters on it. And then for 5 mana, you can adapt 3, which basically means you pay 5 mana and you can put 3 +1/+1 counters on it if it doesn't have any counters on it at all. We are rarely going to use that. Usually, we will play Incubation Druid and then either use Snakeskin Veil or Duskshell Crawler or Vastwood Fortification, something along those lines, to put a counter on it. And basically, if it has any counter, you get that 3 mana. So the ideal play is to get this thing out on turn 2, and then on turn 3, put a counter on it, and basically you can then cheat out one of our later cards, like Biogenic Ooze, which we'll talk about in a minute, on like turn 3. So it's a great way to ramp you into your big creatures very, very quickly. And then also at 2 mana, our removal of choice in this deck is Smell Fear. It is 2 mana, and it says Proliferate, which means any of our, we basically take any of our creatures that have a +1/+1 counter on them and add an additional counter, and then one of our creatures fights an opponent's creature. So it basically helps us get more counters, and then also can get rid of an enemy's creature. Then at 3 mana, we got 4 copies of Oran-Rief Ooze. When it enters the battlefield, you put a counter on something, and whenever it attacks, basically every creature that's also attacking that has a counter on it gets an additional counter, so more ways to get +1/+1 counters. And then finally, at the top of our mana curve, we have 4 copies of Biogenic Ooze. It is 5 mana. When it enters the battlefield, you create another 2/2 Ooze token, and at the beginning of our end step, we put a +1/+1 counter on every Ooze we control. And obviously we have Oran-Rief Ooze as well, so we'll be able to put +1/+1 counters on these guys basically at the end of each end step. And then also, Biogenic Ooze, for 4 mana, we can create an additional Ooze token, which is even more stuff that will continue to get counters. All those other counter things synergize really well with Wildwood Scourge, which will make this thing really big, and then Duskshell Crawler gives it all trample. We're only running 20 basic forests as the land, but keep in mind we also have Vastwood Fortification, so realistically we're running 24 lands in the deck. But yeah, I've been playing with it. I've been really happy with it. Let's jump into some games and I'll show you how it works. Alright, we have our first game. And we've got an okay hand. I would like to see either Incubation Druid or Hardened Scales in this hand, but I think this is fine. We'll keep it. Turn 1 Pelt Collector, probably turn 2 Wildwood Scourge, and then Duskshell Crawler to put a counter on something. Okay, we drew Snakeskin Veil as well. Let's go ahead and play Wildwood Scourge for 1. It's going to come in as a 1/1, but keep in mind, whenever we put a counter on something, Wildwood Scourge will also get a counter. So it can get pretty big. Okay, so we're up against elves. That's fine. Just go here. We'll put the counter onto Duskshell Crawler. Go ahead and attack with both. He's decided not to block, which is completely fine. And we'll end the turn. Keep up Vastwood Fortification and Snakeskin Veil. Alright, got the Archdruid. My turn. What do we got? Oran-Rief Ooze. Okay. That's pretty good. So we're getting a bunch of counters, and then let's go ahead and attack. Do we attack with Pelt Collector? I don't think so. I think we just attack with the Hydra. And if he wants to double block, I'm completely okay with that. Best draw we could get right now would probably be our fight spell. Collected Company. Okay. I mean, Elves in Historic is without a doubt a tier 1 deck. So, we'll see what happens here. He also has a ton of mana. Okay, another Wildwood Scourge. That doesn't really help us a whole lot. So let's go ahead and play Wildwood Scourge for 1. And then go ahead and attack with everything. It's going to make our dudes pretty big. And then we're still keeping up Snakeskin Veil. And everything else. Are you blocking anything else? Okay. So let's go ahead and put a counter onto the Pelt Collector. And then that's probably it. I think we're probably dead on the turn back. But we'll see. I don't know, maybe we can make it work. I mean, we could have gone Snakeskin Veil to add essentially 2 more damage, get him down to 3. They pretty much need to kill us on this turn. Otherwise, we just trample over them and kill them. And they may be able to do it. I mean, they do have a lot of mana thanks to Elvish Archdruid, which gives all the other elves +1/+1, and then adds green mana for every elf they control. And then Elvish Warmaster has the ability to give all elves +2/+2 and Death Touch until end of turn. But I think... I'm trying to think. I mean, I play an elves deck myself on the ranked ladder. I don't think they really have anything here that can save them. Maybe, like, Collected Company? I have a lot of pretty big creatures, and our Wildwood Scourges are going to get very, very big when we attack with everything. So I think they are probably dead here. So just kind of showing, you know, this mono-green counter deck can compete with top tier decks. They even managed to get the Collected Company and all that kind of good stuff. There's a Hardened Scales. That's actually a great draw. That means when we attack, all of our creatures are going to get 2 counters on them. They may have just left the match. They may have decided that they don't want to deal with it anymore. But yeah, I do think this deck is pretty good. I mean, being able to compete with something like elves, there's some matchups where you really struggle. If they're able to remove your early creatures before they get big, you know, this deck can have some problems. But elves is a deck that's generally pretty light on interaction. So there we go. Attack with everything. Make our hydras real big. And there we go. We've beaten mono green elves, a top tier deck. Not bad at all. All right, we've got another game here. And honestly, pretty good hand. We've got Hardened Scales. We've got some early plays. I think I'm perfectly happy with this. Let's go ahead and we'll keep it. Turn 1 Soul Ward. Okay, so it's going to be one of those. This deck struggles to deal with flyers. So if this is an Angels deck, which is usually what you see with turn 1 Soul Warden, we're probably going to have an issue. Because the deck is fairly light on interaction. Okay, clear it class, that's fine. And then here, I think we probably want to go Pelt Collector, or do we want to go Wild? Yeah, let's go Pelt Collector. And then next turn we can Wildwood Scourge, which will make both of them bigger. Or we could go Biogenic Ooze. But I think I like the idea of getting our Wildwood Scourge down as quickly as possible. And they are definitely an Angels deck, so it's going to be a little bit of a struggle. Do we want to pay 2 for this? Yeah, I think we do. They're going to get some stuff. No attacks. I probably should have played Wildwood Scourge for 1 instead. Okay, that's actually fine. Triple Bishop of Wings. Alright. So we can get in there for some good damage here, potentially. Let's go... I mean, we could play Vastwood Fortification, or we could play Oran-Rief Ooze. Make this bigger. They're gonna if this last card is an angel, they're gonna get really big. So I think what we want to do is go. I think we just want to attack. Let's see what they do. We'll see how they block. They didn't block at all. So let's actually go put a +1/+1, basically 2 counters on Pelt Collector. That knocks them out of the range where they can get crazy amounts of advantage out of Soul Warden and stuff. But if they have an Angel in hand, they're going to gain a ton of life because they got 3 Bishop of Wings, which is just a lot. They didn't draw anything. Okay, that's good for me. So play the Oran-Rief Ooze so that Pelt Collector gets bigger. We'll put the counter onto Oran-Rief Ooze. There we go. Attack with everything. They might triple block. They've got Settle the Wreckage. Okay. Well, now we basically lose. Fair enough. I mean, we can go Biogenic Ooze now. Gonna gain a bunch of life, draw a bunch of cards. Play another Soul Warden. I don't know where all their angels are, but I'm not complaining. So we got 8 lands, which means we can actually just play everything here. They're going to gain a bunch of life. But our oozes are going to get really big really fast. Do we attack? I think so. Because Oran-Rief Ooze will be a 6/6. There we go. All of our stuff gets bigger. We can make 2 more oozes next turn. Baneslayer. Okay. That's a lot of life, but we still might be completely okay here. So let's go ahead and, first things first, let's attack. Make all of our dudes real big. There we go. Then we'll play another Biogenic Ooze. And now all of our creatures are really, really big. So they're basically going to need like another Settle the Wreckage here. Yep, there we go. So we beat Angels minus most of the Angels. This is kind of a weird Angels deck, but hey, it's another victory. I'll take it. 2-0. Okay, another game. Looks pretty okay. We've got Incubation Druid, Hardened Scales. The only thing we're really missing is a way to get a counter onto Incubation Druid, but I think I'm fine with it. Seems like a perfectly decent hand. Play the Hardened Scales right off the bat. And we're up against, looks like another life gain deck. We drew a second Hardened Scales, so I think we could go Hardened Scales Pelt Collector, which I don't hate. But I think I'd rather go Incubation Druid, just in case we draw one of our ways next turn to put a counter onto Druid, which will then give us a ton of mana. Okay, so it's another Angels deck. That's fine. Go ahead and block. Alright, there we go. So we did not draw another way to put counters on it, so let's just go Hardened Scales here, and then play another Druid. And then we can go ahead and play Pelt Collector out as well. Unfortunately, everything's tapped, but next turn we can play Biogenic Ooze, since we have 2 Druids on the field, and they can each tap for 1 mana, plus 3 forests. That'll also make Pelt Collector pretty big. Okay, Abiding Grace. That's one of the new cards. So they're almost at the point now where they can make big ol' angels. So let's go put 1 counter onto, well, I suppose it'll be 3 counters because of Hardened Scales. And then play Biogenic Ooze here. And then we'll go ahead and attack with Pelt Collector, which will put him down below the 27 life threshold to make an angel, although they very well may be able to just get there this turn. Okay, tutoring up an enchantment. Clear it class. Okay, that's fine. So they're still going to be under. Yeah, I think we're maybe going to be fine here. Let's see. They didn't play Clear It class, so they're not going to gain. They're only going to gain 2 life here. And then they'll be at 7. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Alright, so I think here the play is to play a Druid. They gain a life. Move to combat. Attack with everything except for our Druid that has counters on it. because then we can make another ooze, or we can make another biogenic ooze. There we go. Activate the ability, make an ooze. Everything gets counters. Okay, there's clear at class. They're gonna upgrade it right away. Might as well block. Now they can make an angel. But I don't know that that's going to be enough to actually, like, save them. Okay, they get the bounty back. So let's go ahead and move to combat. Attack with all this stuff. Oh no! I meant to click the other ooze. Oops. Oh well. Mistakes were made. Oops. Okay. Put a counter onto Pelt Collector. And now they're down to 16, so they're well below the threshold where they can make angels. And then let's go ahead and make some more tokens. They're getting back stuff. If they attack, I can block with my ooze. So that'll get them up above the life threshold, but their speaker is tapped, so they can't... Okay, and a Wildwood Scourge. That's actually pretty good. Okay, and they just scoop. So there you go. That is the deck. I mean, honestly, it's a pretty solid deck. I've been having really good luck with it. I wouldn't say it's like tier 1 can beat just about any... I mean, I think with the right draw, it can beat just about anything. But yeah, I'm super happy with it. As always, deck list will be in the description below. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it, guys. That is going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, you know what to do. Links in the description below, so check that out as well. Otherwise, my friends, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.